So thank you for joining us, everybody. Tonight we've changed the agenda slightly. So we're not looking at OneNote. Instead, we're going to be looking at how to use Flipgrid, teacher videos and QR codes with Year 1, which I'm very excited about, I have to say. And I know Lucy is using them very efficiently at Mowmacre Primary School. So it's very exciting that Lucy is here to show us how that's all going and to give us some great tips and hints. So I think I just have a couple of questions, Lucy. I just think the first one is, I suppose, and I know you'll probably cover this, but which one did you start with? Was it the Flipgrid? Was it teacher videos, QR codes? Where did you begin really on this journey?
I think we began with the QR codes, actually the teacher videos, because as an NQT, I was really struggling when I was in the classroom alone to support children, particularly at the beginning of Year 1, because obviously they're still building that independence and they're not used to formal learning. So in a lesson such as a maths lesson, we've got lots of children who aren't able to necessarily independently read the questions when they're doing their independent work. So I was finding that there was 27 children or thereabouts with their hands up, kind of stuck there waiting for me to get around them all. And it just felt like I was kind of walking up a travelator on gladiators sometimes. I'm sure lots of NQTs and just teachers in general can relate to that. So it came out of a discussion that my year group partner and I had with our head teacher, Mr. Pete here, about what we could do to try and support children's learning, and sort of together we came up with the idea of using videos and the children scanning a QR code. So it kind of seemed like a bit of a crazy idea at the time, and initially we trialled just using audio to read out the questions to the children, but actually we found that that wasn't really giving them, they needed that kind of they needed the visual and the audio as well. So we quickly moved on from that, and now we use the videos with a recording of our voice, which I'll kind of talk through the practicalities of that as we go on. But yes, that's where it started.
And did it take long to embed? Did it take as long as you thought, I suppose?
It really didn't. I think I really liked the idea initially. My apprehension was about the children, how they would access it and how it would support their learning, and would it be a distraction or would it be a bit of a gimmick? I think there were my concerns. But actually, because we taught the learning behaviours alongside the maths lessons when we use those videos, actually they responded to it so well, and I think the iPads for us can still be a bit of an incentive, you know, for the children. If they do X, Y, and Z, then they can use their iPads, but they're also getting used to using them just as and when they need it. You know, it's personal, it's tailored to them, and they can use it when they need to, and they've responded to that so well. Which I think is, you know, Year 1 kids are great for that. They're so adaptable. And actually, yeah, as I said, if you teach the learning behaviours alongside it, it works pretty well.
Absolutely. No, that's great. Thank you. Well, I'm going to stop asking questions because I'm looking forward to hearing what you've got to say, and I'll let you begin. Thank you.
Thank you
for joining us, Lucy.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. And yeah, I think just to say as well, I'm an NQT, so I'm sort of new to this, but I think using tech is kind of new to lots of teachers, isn't it? So I was just saying to Joe before we started, I think kind of going into using a lot of the different apps and tech that we've got, they can be amazing, but they can seem daunting. So I think we're all in the same boat on that a lot of the times. And also, before I trained here in the UK, I taught in Thailand, and I was teaching at a really remote school that we didn't even have any internet. So in terms of being new to tech, that's very much me. So if you're kind of coming at this from not feeling that confident, I've really been there, and I think it's just about giving things a go. So hopefully some of these tips will be helpful. So we'll go through using Flipgrid, the teacher videos, and then just sort of generally about how we use QR codes as well. So the aims of the session, so hopefully to explain how we use Flipgrid to support writing in Year 1, and that's in English. How teacher videos are recorded and used in the classroom. So I've got some information on the practicalities of how we make them and then how we use them. And that's particularly with regard to maths. And then some tips and opportunities for using QR codes as well. So getting started on Flipgrid. So the benefits of using Flipgrid, first of all, so they provide meaningful opportunity for oracy skills. So children can rehearse or practice their piece of writing. This works really, really well with Talk for Writing because children can rehearse their text map and then they can use it, they can use a recording of a video to perform their text map. Flipgrid works really well to upload the videos to because it collates all of the videos from a unit of work. So it's actually quite nice to see if you've got them, your Flipgrid account on your board, the children can see their videos popping up, which is really fun. And it's an incentive for the children. They're really keen to kind of record their video and get it up there. But it helps to for them to develop those oracy skills because you can insist that they rehearse it, and it has to be of a particular standard first before they perform it. So that could be performing it, rehearsing it with a peer or with an adult, and then going on to record it. As well, children can play back their own recording and pause to support with their writing. So I think this is the sort of really key point, and where I've seen it really help some children, particularly for those children that need that sentence word by word. They need it broken down. And, you know, I think when you're supporting quite a few children that have got that need in a classroom where everyone is writing and there's lots of different needs and demands on your time, the fact that children can listen to themselves and then pause it and then write the word they need to write word by word, that's been really transformative for me. And I think a lot of the children have really enjoyed being that little bit more independent as well and being able to do that. The individual and whole page QR codes as well that are downloadable. So that's something that's great about Flipgrid, is you can get a QR code that's just for the page. So it means if you want to put it onto your working wall so that someone can come along and scan a QR code, they can see the whole page of all the children's videos for that unit of work. But you can also go onto Flipgrid and download an individual QR code for each child's video. And that's really great because it provides evidence in their books, shows those oracy skills, you're evidencing that, but also it means that when children are returning to their work or starting something new, they can just open their book, their QR code's there. If they've got their iPad, they can scan it, and that takes them straight to their video. So you don't have to have too much with logging in and things like that. I think just a couple of points I would sort of make generally is that the videos also allow that kind of extension of learning as well. So children can play the videos of their friends often, which could be a good extension or challenge. So one example of that is I used Flipgrid in a unit of work we did on instruction writing. So the children performed their instruction writing. It was recipe for what makes a good friend. They recorded it, they uploaded it to Flipgrid, and then they used that to help them with their writing. And then an extension of that was they could then choose, once they'd done their writing, they could choose a friend's video and they could watch the performance and they could perform that along with them. And actually we did an additional extension, which was, because it was near to Christmas, they got to make a rocky road that where the ingredients were linked to the recipe of what makes a good friend. So I've got a picture of that a bit later, which I can show you, but there's just lots of opportunity to kind of challenge them further within Flipgrid as well. So I would just say also about the supporting children to with their writing is you can model that as part of your teacher input as well. So in your lesson, you can use a child's video and you can show how that can be used. So word by word or sentence by sentence, how that can be used to support them in their writing. So you're kind of teaching that learning behaviour alongside supporting them how to construct that sentence as well. So I found that really helpful. So there's some sort of practicalities about using Flipgrid. So log in advance would be a sort of top tip. So once children are initially set up on Flipgrid, it's easy for them to log in, but they often have to log in each time. So what I usually do is just make sure they're logged in advance of the lesson, so your lesson time isn't held up with children saying, "Oh, I need help with logging in." It's up to you if you want to take out an entire lesson at the start of when you first used Flipgrid to get the children practiced into signing up. You might just want to take that step out for them if you think that's perhaps going to be too challenging for your class. But I did it as a class where they learn how to log in, and it just means they've got that as a backup. If they do need to log in at any point, they can do that. And then explicit modelling, I think, yeah, as I just mentioned before, modelling how to use Flipgrid, but how to perform well as well. So it can just be included in your teaching, so what your expectations are. And make your own. So you can see a picture of me that's doing the tiger that came to tea text map that I recorded. It sounds really straightforward, but when doing it yourself, you're thinking through the steps and how the child's going to access it, what the steps are and what they need to remember. And usually what I do is a sort of good video and a bad video. And then I get the children to tell me, oh, what were the good points and what do I need to work on to help them to think about. I need to make sure I'm looking at the camera. I need to make sure you can see my hands and my face, that you're speaking clearly, all those kind of things. And just to use the QR codes on your working walls, because that can be a helpful learning tool for the children to scan if they need to link back to their Flipgrid at any point. But also it's evidence, or it's if any visitors come into your classroom and want to see what you've been working on, then it's really helpful as well.
Lucy, can I just say, I think I completely agree with you about the logging in. It's really important to keep that going.
Yeah. Would you say, Jo, that's important to kind of make some time for that, to make sure they practice logging in? It's a good skill to have, isn't it?
Absolutely, because it just layers up the process and builds that knowledge then obviously for year 2, year 3. Just help. I know it's a difficult one, but
I have found as well, I think now we're at the point of the year where we've got children logging into Flipgrid, to Teams, to Tapestry. They're much more confident. They're less phased by that login page, which, you know, we'd have some of them in tears or just complete bamboozlement initially when they'd see that login page, and now they're much more confident. So yeah, I do think it's worth doing that, but I understand it can be tricky. But I think you've always got those children in your class that are more confident. Perhaps they've got devices at home, and you can, you know, use them as your helpers, get them to support children who are less confident. And I often find it's the children who are more confident with using tech than perhaps are with their writing. So it's kind of nice to have that balance of children feeling like they're the experts in something, so it gives them a boost. I could, at this point, Jo, I could log on to Flipgrid onto my account and just show some of the sort of our class page. Would that be useful to do?
That would be great, yes, if you don't mind. Yeah.
So do I need to stop what I'm doing?
So if you just stop presenting and
then if I
stop sharing, yeah, that's great.
And then I'll just go on to
because I think you're right, it's nothing more powerful than actually seeing it.
That's right, yeah, rather than just hearing about it. So if I want to share my screen, but it's just the web page that I need to. Here we go. Can you see that?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, perfect.
So this relates to what I just mentioned about collating the topics that you're working on. So you can see here we've done one for our instruction writing and one for story writing, which we've just done recently. So I'll click onto the instruction writing. So this, as I said, it collates all of the children's videos, so they can see them popping up as they come up, which is really quite fun. And then this is the example that I just mentioned, always having your own example, because children can refer back to that as a sort of a good example of what they should be doing, but it's also a useful learning tool and useful for modelling as well. So with regard to the QR codes, so if I just click in the top corner here, I can do share. And if I just click onto this here, it'll give me the QR code, and that's the QR code for this page. So that's what I mentioned is useful for your working wall, or if you want to evidence what the children are working on, good for displays as well. But you can also get individual QR codes as well. Now I've just realised that I've gone on to, I'm not on my usual, I'm on member view, just to make life difficult for myself. Sorry, just 1 second. So there's an option you can press when you're an owner, that you can go onto member view, and that shows you how the children see it, which is really helpful, but not if you can't remember how to then get off it, which is what I've just done now. Okay, let me try on this one. Oh, here we go. Lovely. So this is not on member view. So you can see here, there's member view at the top. So if I click on that, it just shows me, as it did with the other page, the examples that I showed you before. There's a join code there as well. So if there was any problem with the QR codes, you've got that as well. But you can also here go on to print QR codes. So if I was to click on that, you can see that it gives me a file, which is, if it's going to load, all of the children's QR codes and their names as well. So that just makes it really helpful in terms of easily popping that into their books, both as evidence, but also for them to use to scan to then help them with their writing, or if they're returning to it as well. And I think that's where it's also a useful tool, because obviously children, if they're working on a hot write, for example, they can still go back to their Flipgrid to help them, but they're all going to be at different points in their writing. So children that are kind of speedier at writing, and other children that are making slower progress, the QR code system allows it to be individualized. They can just go to the point that they're at and use that to support them with their writing. So I'll just go back to the stories, or the spooky cake instructions, because I just want to show one example, just if there's anyone that hasn't seen Flipgrid at all before. So you can see these are all the children's videos that collate here. I'm just going to show you Alicia's. There it is there. You can search for people at the top. You can also pin just here, which is great if there's some good examples that you want to use in your teaching. You can pin them so they're there at the top for you. But this is an example of, can you hear that sound?
No, that's not coming through.
No.
Lucy.
It might be. You need to share your sound.
Yeah, I do it every time, don't worry.
Include computer sound, I always forget it.
Yeah, you'd think they'd make it more automatic now, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry guys, 1 second.
So when you go on to Flipgrid, just
yes.
So for those people that are not sure, so you set up a group first, and then you use the topics within the groups. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so the groups first, and then the topics. And obviously the topics can be about anything. We've used them for English, but you can have topics that go across the curriculum, whatever it's useful for. So I wanted to use this example just to show you. This was the first video that Alicia made, but she's made such good progress since this one. But I'll just show you quickly.
Push in some waiting in line. Next is some nerves. Give it a mix! Exclamation mark.
I absolutely love that video. I'm obsessed with it. I could watch it all day. Just wanted to show that one because although Alicia's delivery is absolutely brilliant, you can see that she's done it on the floor in the corridor. She's just kind of found some space. So it was a great example to use to show, okay, how could we improve that? So where could you put the iPads? You know, how, just sort of those steps. And again, it's one of those things where until you use it, you don't know exactly what those points are going to be that you need to work on. So that informed sort of next steps in my teaching was to include those points of how the children should record themselves, how to make a good recording, because ultimately if it's a poor recording, it's not going to support them with their writing. And that's obviously using Talk for Writing. And I think what's great there is that, like Alicia evidences, she's able to use an exclamation mark. So for those children that perhaps are less confident in their writing, it still does provide evidence that they are kind of, you know, working towards meeting those objectives for the end of year one. Great. So, Joe, any other questions on sort of Flipgrid itself? I've got a couple of slides next on what the challenges are, but I'll stop sharing that.
If you could, you just go back. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else people need to know. You've shared where you get the actual QR code from, so that's great.
Yes, that's helpful.
And I think that's really everything people. Oh, I know the other question. Do you add, so where you've got the groups, how do you set that group up? Do you have to add the children's names into it? How does that group work? Can you just explain that?
Yes. So yes, you have to. So you would add a new topic here. So we've got a new topic at the side there. And so you can add all the details into there, and then you need to add the children to it. So once you've posted the topic, you can add the children to it from there, and it's straightforward to do, and because the children are be pre-logged in on their iPads if you've done it in advance, that makes it really easy as well, because they're already added to that year group, so they just go straight into that. They can go straight into the topic and choose that right one, or you can just share the QR code with them. So rather than having to choose the topic, you can just share the QR code for that particular topic, and then they go straight to the main page. So there's two ways of doing it.
And would you say the QR code is the best option?
Yeah, I found it's really helpful because our children are really confident in using the QR code, so they're happy to do that. And you can have one printed and put it on the table. You can have it on the board or on your working wall, a few dotted around, so children can jump onto that when they're ready.
Brilliant. And what you just showed there, the settings, could you just pop back to that?
Yeah,
Lucy, is that right? And
yeah. So you've got details of the topic, create topic, and then the settings there as well.
Could you just really briefly, I know this is going probably into too much detail, but just explain what options people have got there as well, so that they realise that they might.
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Joe. That's a really good prompt, actually, because this is something, the recording time's really useful setting to change. You know, it's a balance between, you're going to have children that, depending on what the recording is, so if it's a text map, it should sort of have a set period of time, and it's not going to take more than, you know, probably 5 minutes for them to record their text map. But if it's something a bit more open-ended, like, you know, have a discussion with your talk partner about X, Y, and Z, you might want to cap it at 3 minutes or 2 minutes, just so you haven't got long videos and really big files. But obviously, if you've got children that are perhaps talk at a slower pace or need a lot more support and scaffolding with making their videos, you might want to put the setting to 10 minutes as well. So that's a really good one to change as well. So yeah, I don't think I've particularly changed these to made any changes to these. So that's just if you want to put in a guest password. So perhaps with older children, that might be beneficial to do that. And then they've got a password they can pop in to be able to access the topic.
And sometimes, Lucy, on the responses, I think you can change so if you can change those to allow the children to respond to other people's video clips. I don't know whether you ever, again, that's for year one, you might not need to do that, but
yeah, we haven't taught that at all. We do use each other's videos, but more to watch or as an extension of their learning. But I don't tend to sort of explicitly teach using those settings. So yeah, commenting or liking. Have you seen them used further up the school?
Only for, yes, so just some older children. But again, sometimes it's worth taking those things off as well. Sometimes they can, you know, it's worth just knowing that they're there, because you might find that some children, you can add comments, I think, in one case where it says video and text comments there. Can you see that drop down arrow?
Yes, yeah.
You go to that one, it's just further up, it's video and text comments.
Oh,
That's
yes.
it. It's sometimes good to take that element off, but again, it depends on the age group, and it depends what you want from the and
I suppose if you were doing an activity that was like 2 stars and a wish, or write a positive comment about somebody's video, that could be a really nice aspect to include. But yes, for year 1, I haven't used those. So anything else? So yeah, ask a question at the start of your discussion. You can sort of put in whatever your lead question is, and then topic media. So this is where I would usually record my kind of good example, my modelled example, and I would add that just so the children can see that as the first video as part of the topic as well. Just go back to groups. I'll see if there's anything else I need to show you. So yeah, we've got duplicate, move, delete, export data. So if you did ever want to download all of the videos, you can do that. Record a response, that's just if you want to add your own recording to it. And edit topic, that just takes you back into what we were looking at just a moment ago.
That's brilliant.
So,
thanks, Lucy.
Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, lovely. Okay, so I'll stop sharing that and I'll carry on.
And there looks quite a lot to it, doesn't there? But actually, once you've used it a few times, it's very easy to use, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's yeah, once you get used to it, just as with anything, yeah, you just become more confident, and ultimately it's a way to collate videos and for children to share them. I think you can overcomplicate anything, and I think every time I've used it, I've found something different on there, you know, because as you explore it and you get more confident. But I think initially, if you're just using it to collate those videos and then using it with the QR codes that children can then have in their books and scan and use that to support them with their writing, that's the sort of biggest impact it's had. But I did just want to include, these are just a couple of sort of extra things that we did with the Flipgrid video. So I mentioned we sort of extended the children's learning. So you can see we've got the recipe for what makes a good friend, and we've assigned it to an ingredient for a rocky road. So the children had to watch, they could either watch their own or a friend's instructions, and they had to follow that and make sure they chose the right ingredient and follow the instructions. So it was just an extra way to kind of embed that that fluency, but using the videos, following those instructions, and the kids really enjoyed making the rocky roads as well. And then you can see our naughty elves on the shelves there, elves on the shelf, that were doing the same thing as well. So the sort of different ways to incorporate it, but it does come with challenges. So I just wanted to go through what a few of those were that I found. So yeah, definitely log in. So ensuring that children know how to log in, so explicitly teaching that. But if you're short on time in a particular unit of work, perhaps logging them in advance. That's sort of, it's up to you. And then the second challenge is volume. So obviously if you've got up to 30 children in the classroom all making a recording at once, it can be quite noisy, and you want to make sure, as I said before, that those recordings are good quality so that they do support with writing. So it's just about utilising any intervention space, or we have children out in the corridors, but you can stagger it as well. You might get one group started a bit sooner that are a bit more confident as well. And practice and modelling. So just making sure the children are practicing if it's taught for writing, or whatever it is they're going to write, whether it's a sentence, a paragraph, whatever, that they rehearse that first, again, so that the recording is of good quality and it's worthwhile doing, and obviously modelling that, as I've mentioned before. And and you could partner up children who are sort of more and less confident in doing that as well. That can really help. But also access to devices. I'm very aware here at Mowmacre, the children are so lucky they have access to an individual device, but I know that's not the case for all children. So children could partner up and record each other, which we've done that as well anyway, just to sort of bring in that skill of you know, how to record somebody, making sure they're in a good position. But if there's less than one and between two, you could stagger the recordings as well, to get some children recording while others are still practicing, or some might be moving on with their writing even. I think as well, just it's important to say that not one size fits all, and that some children will need more support with making their recording, but knowing that if perhaps their level of English or obviously doesn't allow them to make a good quality recording, but they've got access to either a peers video or a teacher example, so that they are still able to use them, and that will still then support them with their writing. They can still benefit from that. But I would also say that some of my lower ability children, their text maps and their recordings are absolutely amazing. So it's so great for them to feel really successful, and often they're the examples that I choose of you know, a good example of a video that's been made, and that gives them such a boost as well. So it does provide those really lovely moments of sort of celebrating and having successful moments for children who might not necessarily get it with their writing as well. Okie doke. So, okay, if I move on, Jo, to teacher videos.
Yes, absolutely. I was just going to say, what do the children think about Flipgrid when you share them on the screen? Are they?
Yeah, I mean, watching them pop up is really fun. You know, because it's quite, yeah, it's kind of instantaneous. Once they finish their recording, they can see it there. If I've got it on the board, that is really lovely, and they love seeing their faces alongside each other. And again, you know, that's such an incentive for them to do it. So yeah, it's really lovely. So with regard to teacher videos, we use teacher videos predominantly in maths. And this is to support with, and when children are doing their independent tasks, how we use teacher videos to support them with that, so that they can access those independent tasks. So I've got a slide here about the benefits, and to be honest, I could have written an essay, and I had a chat with my year group partner yesterday. I said, oh, any benefits of the teacher videos that I've missed off, and then we listed about another 6. So they are really, really great. I would really recommend using them. So promotes independence and ownership over children's own learning journey. So I think the independence is so key. You know, we've all got children in the class that will just sit there and wait for someone to come along, and perhaps it's because they can't read the question or they're not willing to try, whatever it might be. But the having a video that they can play kind of takes that excuse away. Say, right, well, if you can't read the question, you can use your iPad to help you. You've got the videos there. But it also creates that ownership. So, you know, whatever stage a child is at that particular task, they can use the video to support them. With particular regard to allowing children who are ready to move on to do so. So these children that are going to sort of complete the first independent tasks quite quickly and move on to the challenge, it means that they're able to do that without you having to necessarily stop the whole class and explain a challenge. But because it's your voice on the video, you're ensuring that they're getting a good quality explanation. So it's still that kind of high quality. They're still getting the support or the scaffolds that you would be giving them if you're explaining it to the whole class. And as a result, it provides more opportunity for the challenge in maths. I think certainly I've seen children that are perhaps sort of not as secure in their maths knowledge, or a little bit lower ability in maths. I see them get onto those math challenges because they've used the video to support them to get there, and so that's been really great. But it also allows for those children in particular for questions to be repeated or read aloud for those who need it. So it means that learning time isn't wasted. So as I mentioned, you haven't got children that are just sitting there waiting with their hand up and an empty book in front of them. It means that even, you know, there's always children that after you've explained it and they go off to complete it independently, they've forgotten, perhaps they weren't listening as they should have been, or they just need it repeating. And they've got that option to be able to do that. So they can use the video to have questions repeated. Or certainly if there's questions that are written in sentences that they're not able to read, because their reading level isn't quite there yet, it's your voice doing that for them. And as a result, it makes it inclusive. Everybody can use the videos, everybody can access them. Just creates that ownership and independence. It allows opportunities for children to develop reasoning and problem solving. So it just gives more children more of an opportunity to get onto those challenges. And again, you can put into the videos those little extra tips. You can say, you know, what I'm looking for you here is for you to use your sentence starter. I know that because, or whatever it might be. So you're giving those little tips along the way. They're getting those reminders. The learning is personalised. So even though everybody is doing the same task, they're all, getting to a different point at it in their learning, but they're using the video to support them to get there. And I would say that it's got minimal impact on planning and teacher workload. I think, you know, whenever there's anything new that you hear about, that's always the concern that, a QR code, that's another step to add into my maths planning. But actually it isn't. And I will explain that a little bit more as we go on. But it really has very little impact on teacher workload. And I think the thing that I've said to a few people is that it is like having another adult in the classroom. I mean, please don't say that to my head teacher, because I would like some more support in the classroom, as we all would. But it's made such a difference, particularly on those days when I'm in the class on my own, because now I've got children that are really confident in using their iPads to be able to watch those videos. They can go off and do that in a quiet space, perhaps in the corridor, in an intervention space, or at their tables. And it means rather than children sitting there that because they can't read question 1, or children sitting there because they're ready for the greater depth challenge, and you're being pulled in between. And for me, learning at which point I stop the learning and I introduce the next part. And, those are skills that I'm still developing as an NQT. So having the videos there to do that really supports me, but it does give children that ownership as well. And I think one thing I've also found it useful for is that we always have those children in class who have a tendency to rush through their work, and even though they're really capable and they understand, they've rushed through it and they've perhaps made some sort of basic errors. So you can go back to those children, and without giving them too much feedback, you can say, right, go back and check again. This part here, check again, use your iPad. So it means they go back, they listen to the question again, they think, oh, okay, I know what's happened here. I haven't listened fully to the question. So it helps them to realise, where it is that they perhaps made those mistakes. It just gives them a little push in the right direction, but doesn't mean that you're having to be the one that then reads the question out to them. I'll just say at this point, though, I'm not saying that these videos are replacing the teacher in any way. They're there as an additional resource once children are doing that independent task that they're able to refer to. So it's that reference. So on my next slide, hopefully you can see that I've got a QR code. So I made a video of how to make a video and get a QR code, and that's the QR code, if that isn't too confusing. So basically, if you want to, you can scan the QR code, and there's a video for how we at Mowmacre make the QR codes and how we put them into children's books. So it's a bit of a step-by-step, and on the video, it's about 6 or 7 minutes long, and I just talk through what we do, so how we record the video, and then how we make the QR code, and then putting that into the children's work. So I'd advise anyone who would like to see that step by step to scan the QR code, perhaps after the webinar today. I'm just a bit conscious of time, so people can do that today. If you would like some advice on doing that, is that okay, Jo?
That's brilliant, and I just think it's so useful to have there. Like you say, people can go back and do that later on, or when they're ready to. You don't have to do it straight away. But I was just thinking as well, what you said about this method. It's also teaching great listening skills for the children too. Like you said, you don't have to keep repeating it yourself. Just go back to that video and listen properly this time.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Absolutely, yeah, it's so true. So just with some challenges on the video, so you can see here an image, we've got a child they're scanning the QR code that's in their book, so that's where we would put it. Is challenge with volume again, and I have had it where I've had my own voice or my year group partner's voice echoed 20 times in the classroom. It is a little bit much, so it's just making sure that for children that are sort of ready to move on quite quickly, that you're perhaps using the corridor or any intervention space that you've got for them to go and get started on that, or just keeping volume turned down to a reasonable level. We have talked about getting headphones here, which I think is something that we might do, which would be really helpful, because I think it does help the children to listen better as well if they've got the headphones in. But part of the volume control is learning behaviours needing to be taught explicitly. So when we first introduced these, we explicitly taught how to scan the QR code, how and when to use it, because some children will just get to their table and pick up their iPad and start playing it straight away, because it's fun or because it's easy. So it's making sure that then they're not just doing that, that they're using it when they need it, and still making sure that they are, they should be listening as part of the learning. They can't just rely on that iPad to do it all for them. And as I said there, yeah, just utilising the intervention space that you've got or any extra space, obviously where children can work safely, and that it doesn't replace live teaching. It's just providing additional support as well, which is important. I think as well, I do explain it more in the video with the QR code, so I don't want to kind of repeat what I say in that video. But in terms of teacher workload, that's the thing I would reiterate is, now, because of the way we record it, because we've done it so many times and it is a straightforward process to do, it's the recording, and it doesn't have to be perfect. If you say the wrong word, you don't have to record it perfectly each time. But I think when you create a worksheet, you always check back through it anyway. You always read through it to make sure your questions all make sense or they all flow. You've got everything you need in there. So it's just like another check. So as you're going through and you're checking your worksheets right, you're just reading the questions aloud as you go. So if you see it as just doing that, another checkpoint, then it doesn't seem like it's an extra step. And actually, I found when I've done the recordings that I have made a couple of mistakes on one or two occasions. So it's worth doing that really. And I think also it helps you talk through in advance of the lesson how you're going to explain the task. So it can be sort of a good little practice as well. So just with regard to QR codes, so I think QR codes is kind of the overarching theme that brings Flipgrid and the teacher videos together, because it's the QR code, it's the skill of scanning the QR code that the children are using here, and that's taking them to either the teacher video in maths, or it's taking them onto Flipgrid, or it's taking them onto whichever other app they're using. And I think using QR codes to scan is such a great skill for the children to learn, and it's really simple, and our children now are so confident doing it. But I saw this, I can't remember if it was a tweet or I saw it on Instagram, and it really made me laugh. I sent it to my year group partner, because I remember a few years ago when I was working in a university, and then my colleagues saying, oh, QR codes are dead, they've got no future. And I think, with lockdown, with menus going to QR codes, we're seeing them so often. We're all using them a lot more in our day-to-day lives than we were when QR codes sort of first became a thing 10-ish years ago, or 8-ish years ago, I think. Yeah, they've had a bit of a rebirth. So I do think it's a worthwhile skill for children to learn. And it allows, once they've got that skill, it allows them to access challenges and games. And it allows them to access their own work, such as Flipgrid videos, as I mentioned, promotes independence, and evidences their learning and progress. So it's great to have on working walls, it's great to have on displays, it's great to have in topic books. And I think when you're having those math lessons or other lessons that are practical, they're not in books, and you're thinking, oh, I need to evidence this, it might be a case of you put all your pictures onto Tapestry, and then you link a QR code to that particular album of photos, and that's the QR code that goes into their books. And it means that you've got that evidence. If anyone wants to see what they've been doing on that particular day, they can scan the QR code themselves and go and see that as well. So it's quite a handy way to provide that evidence. So I've just got a couple of pictures there just to show sort of how else we use QR codes. So yeah, maths games which challenge and extend, so that could be at the end of a lesson, or it could be an incentive as well. But yeah, we often do links to sort of top marks games and things like that, which the kids really seem to enjoy. And we also use it for Kahoot as well. So we've started using Kahoot QR codes for the children to scan and then join in with the quiz. And nothing goes down better than a Kahoot quiz in our classrooms anyway. They absolutely love it. But I've also found them really useful to use in displays as well. So we've got the one with all the love hearts there is our display on what makes a good friend, which was our the writing unit that we did on instruction writing that I mentioned. But we've used the QR code to show the videos that the children's made, and it's sort of a way of celebrating all of their work in your displays as well. But it also means if any visitors come to the school, you can have an iPad they have access to, and scanning the QR code means they can see how you use Flipgrid, what it looks like, or any other apps that you're using. But also it can be a way to create more meaningful content for the children. So a display that we've got that we had for Science Week, where the children were learning about the names and the roles of each part of the plant, is they created videos about what each part of the plant does. And then those videos were uploaded to Tapestry independently by the children as well, because that's a skill that they've been developing, uploading onto Tapestry. And then we used a link from Tapestry to create a QR code that's gone onto the display. So when we've recapped on learning about plants, children have been able to go into the corridor, scan a QR code if they're not sure what the job of the roots are, and they can learn from each other. They can learn from their peers giving it an explanation, which is really lovely. But also it's nice for visitors to see what you've been working on and what the children are learning as well. Okay, so I think that's it from me. I don't know if there's any questions from you, Jo, or anybody else.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, Lucy. And I was just going to add, I saw the other day another display in another school, which just jogged my memory when I saw that on yours. They put the children, it was a QR code that linked to the children reading out their work that they'd done. So again, you know, when you record children speaking in your classroom, but you look at that video and think, I don't know where to put it. I don't know where to evidence that. Yeah. It's a great place to put it, isn't it? Because then people can come along, as you say, just zap that QR code and just really enjoy rewatching what the children are saying there. So you're absolutely right. They're so powerful. And
the same in books. I have to say we use them a lot in our topic books, because if we've done if we've looked at an area of learning and children have been able to give a really good oral explanation about you know, when we're looking at the Victorians, we thought, great, that's so amazing, we're going to capture that. And that's gone into their topic book. Or when we had RE week, we were looking at different celebrations of people that are Muslim. We had a lot of Muslim children in the school, in our class, and they made an amazing contribution to that lesson and taught the other children so much. And we thought, well, this is a great tool. Let's make those recordings. And again, we can use them in that. We've used them in our RE folders, but we've also linked back to them in our RE teaching as well. So there's lots and lots of ways that they can be really helpful. And I think once children have got that skill of scanning the QR code, they're really confident. They're not afraid of one. They think, okay, great, I know what I need to do with this.
Yeah, and you're right. It's such a great way to evidence what children are doing within the books, because when they're having discussions or you're doing some sort of role play, you can, again, like you say, put it into the book through that QR code, because if you recorded it on Flipgrid or something like that, it's a great way. Yeah, we've had the open day here at Day Mill, and we were talking about all those ways of, well, how would I record that in the book? Because obviously it's great, it's a great activity, but we need to, as we always need to in education, evidence what we've done. And yes. So absolutely perfect, and just so nice to be seeing it done with, you know, the younger children as well in schools, you know, in year one, and how you've adapted it and how you've been so creative with it in your planning. And I think that's the other key about this as well. The key thing is to go back to your planning, isn't it, and to really see where it fits in well.
Yes, that's a really good point, Joe. Definitely, I think, and in terms now when I sort of plan a unit of writing, is I think about how we're going to incorporate Flipgrid. So making sure that we've got the time to do it and it's being used in a meaningful way, and that also it's been included, the modelling of how to use it has been included in those lessons as well. So yeah, absolutely.
And one final thing, I know we were speaking about this before we started the webinar, but having a plan B, I don't know.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, Joe and I were just saying that, with internet connections and anything with technology, yeah, you always need a plan B. I think with Flipgrid, what's great is, I meant to mention this actually, is if there are any issues with the children adding their video straight onto Flipgrid, they can always record it on their iPad and then it can be uploaded later. So we've actually had that issue before where I thought a lesson was going to completely go down the toilet because we couldn't get the children onto Flipgrid just because of internet connection. But then we recorded it onto their cameras, and then we could upload it at a later date. And that was actually another skill for the children to learn, to upload it themselves. So both are good options. But yeah, I just think making sure that you've got a backup plan so that if the internet doesn't work or there's any issues with your tech, that learning time isn't lost, and that you're still able to have a good and purposeful lesson.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm just going to put people give people the option to be able to speak and present if they want to, because I think there's so much that you've shown there, and I think what I might say, if you don't mind, Lucy, as well, is whether you'd be open to maybe people coming to speak to you about this if they did want to see it, sort of, see it face to face in the classroom, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Very happy for people to come and sit. And I know my year group partner, Anne-Marie, it feels the same. We're really open, I think, because this is so new to us and it's gone really well, but we're really happy to talk about it and share that. And for people to come and see it in the classroom, but also to have a chat with us about it afterwards, because I think a lot of the questions can often be about the practicalities of how do you do that, how do you make that video. So hopefully things like that QR code that I've popped in here will help, but very happy for people to come and see us at Mowmacre, definitely.
That's great, thank you. And then finally, I was just going to add, obviously we're still part of the EdTech demonstrator programme, and this coming month, we are in March now, aren't we? So this coming month, on the 10th and the 16th of March, there will be the EdTech conference. So there's lots of workshops and webinars happening throughout on those 2 days. So please go onto the EdTech demonstrator programme and have a look at what's on offer there. It's well worth having a look to see, if you've got a TDT afternoon or a PPA afternoon and you can squeeze that in, that's great. But even if you register and you can't watch it on at that time, you can obviously then you'll get a link and they'll send you the recording and you can watch it later on. So I would just again like to thank Lucy so much for joining us today and talking about Flipgrid and the videos and QR codes. If there aren't any questions, I will just we'll finish there and just thank everybody again for joining us as well and giving up your time this evening. I really hope that was useful. I know it was for me. I've learned lots there, Lucy, so thanks again.
Great.
The next webinar is on Thursday this week, so I would look forward to seeing people there. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jo.
Thank you.